to the Village of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Friday, September 24th. We have the minutes from August 13th, 2021. Can I have a motion?
So moved to adopt.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have two determinations today, and the files are available at Village Hall for reviewing. So Pam, on the first application of 15 Pleasant Lane, we don't need to know who's sitting on it, right? You just do.
No, I'll pull the correct people.
In the application of 15 Pleasant Lane LLC, 15 Pleasant Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-2-2-13.3. Go ahead. To construct a single-family residence swimming pool and pool equipment is approved. May I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Pam, can you poll the board?
Sure. Mr. McGurk,
Yes.
Mr. McMullen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell,
Yes.
Mr. Rose.
Yes.
And we have the second determination in the application of Margaret Van Ert, 14 Mill Hill Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 1-8-4-27 to legalize coverage and expand accessory structures is approved. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Pam, please poll the board.
Mr. McGurk,
Yes.
Mr. McMullen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell,
Yes.
Mr. Rose,
Yes.
Ms. Doyle.
Yes.
All right, so moving along here on the adjournment today, we have Lisa and Gary Seff, 43 Mill Hill Lane, to be adjourned to October 1st, 2021. I don't need a motion for that, right?
No.
Okay. So now we're on to our hearings. We have 34 Darby Lane, 34 Darby Lane. Pam, can you please read the notice?
Sure. Application of 34 Darby LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-8-12-17 for variances from Chapter 278 zoning to make alterations and construct an addition to a pre-existing non-conforming residence. Variances of 28.9 feet and 21.6 feet are requested from Section 278-3A-4A to make alterations to an existing residence located 21.1 feet from the side yard lot line and to construct an addition 28.4 feet from the side yard lot line where the required setbacks are 50 feet. The subject property is 96,506 square feet in area and is located at 34 Darby Lane in Residence District R80. This project is classified as a type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Thank you. Pam, just please indicate who's sitting on this application. I believe it's the full board and there's no alternates on this.
That's correct. There's no, unless someone has recused themselves.
Nobody has. Okay.
I think
Okay,
we
good.
have the applicant on the line too. If you guys want me to unmute them.
We should just have the counsel for 34 Darby Lane.
Who's identifying themselves as the applicant, Mr. Gambino?
Or Daniel Hayes.
That's not the applicant.
He's a neighbor, Jody.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Well, if you'd
Okay.
like me to unmute them, let me know when.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Hickman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This is Letty Ackerman on behalf of the applicant. It's a pleasure to appear this morning on behalf of this applicant owner. As all of you, I'm sure, have experienced upon visiting the property, this is an unusual piece of property with a lot and substantial historical value. I have, as witnesses today, the architect on the project, Pietro. I also have two architectural historians who submitted reports and will have very brief presentations to make and answer any questions. Jill Snodgrass and Ann Walker of Peter Penoyer. First, I want to thank Billy for his excellent memo outlining the history of the property, which dates back to an original house in 1895 that was remodeled in 1927. This iconic parcel was the subject of numerous articles in the Star, having been designed by a well-known architect, Fulton Weaver, and later remodeled by Alexander Gorlin, a very important architect of this period. Over the years, this home has been renovated and rebuilt with the original architecture aesthetics remaining essentially intact. Joel Snodgrass will speak to the historical components, the complementary architecture of what's proposed, and Ann Walker will speak to the alternatives and the furthering of the Garland design, which is part of this application. My task as a lawyer, not as an architect, is to demonstrate, as set forth in Billy's memo, the satisfaction of the 5 criteria that show the benefit to the applicant outweighed by detriment to the health, safety, or welfare of the neighboring community. With respect to the first criteria, character of the neighborhood, I think our positions, papers that we've submitted in support, our legal memorandums, and the plans and the reports of our architectural historians demonstrate that there will be no substantial change in the character of the neighborhood by virtue of what's proposed. There's no visual impact due to the location of additional significant plantings on the property, which we've provided a memorandum on to deal with the issues with respect to the length of construction that this project took, principally due to the impact of COVID. We have indicated in our September 8th letter that in our dealings with Mrs. Robbins' counsel, I believe we've resolved her issues with respect to noise during this lengthy period of construction with plantings and fencing, as well as dates of construction and limitation on hours. With respect to the benefits sought by the applicant, the issue is whether they can be achieved other than by a variance. What we're going to demonstrate through our expert witnesses today is that the owner is expanding on the symmetry, not just more space. Alternative locations have been considered, and it's our position, and we will demonstrate that they're not aesthetically in sync with the historic program of this property. The third criteria to be balanced is the variance substantial. As Billy points out, although we are seeking only 700 square feet plus or minus with respect to expansion by virtue of the double height ceiling, the actual application is in excess of that. With respect to environmental impacts on the neighborhood, there is no wetlands here. This is a very modest addition. And the fifth and final criteria is this self-created. Yes, it is, in terms of the fact that this property was acquired, purchased in 2020 with the applicable zoning in place. However, as Billy has noted out in his memo, when this house was originally built some time ago, the setbacks were half of what they are today, which renders it in some respects not self-created. So I'd ask Pietro and Mr. Chairman, I've indicated to all of our witnesses to keep their remarks very short so that the board can interact and ask any questions. So Pietro, could you make your presentation, please?
Yeah, mute yourself, Pietro.
Good morning, Pietro Cicognani Color Architects. I've been working in your area in the last 34 years, raised in Rome, studied at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris and Columbia University. I have great respect for your zoning rules and regulations. We may start with some images.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the master plan that we're dealing with. Anne and Joe will talk a lot more about this.
Wait, just one second.
We can't see anything.
It's not up.
It's not up on the screen.
Just share your screen.
Hang on just one second.
Thank you.
Is it working now?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
On the left, you see a master plan of the area. The house in question is now located where the lawn, sunken lawn is on axis with the pool in the middle of the image on the left. And on the right, you see an historical photo of the pool and retaining wall and pavilions that we inherited. Next. This is a panoramic view. No, we're going too fast.
sorry.
Okay, this is a panoramic view of the reason why our client bought this property. It's a remnants of something built in the 20s and 30s. Again, is a pool right in the middle with a retaining wall. We are currently working on the pool to restore it and make it into a fountain. As you can see, a pool/fountain in this panoramic view. Next slide.
Wait, could you go back to the past slide and make it a little bit larger, please? So everyone can get a good look at it. One more time, please.
One more.
There we go. Thank you.
That's clearer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next. No, that's too far. Okay. This is a rendering that we did of the current condition. Note the three arches with the grottos that we're trying to restore, and note the fountain in the middle of the pool that we just built. Next. This is the house that Mrs. Rader bought, and this was before the start of the work 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. You see the master plan, how the house is linked on the center, symmetrically on the pool and pavilions, but the house has a pergola on one side and a small octagonal tower on the other side. This was incidentally a drawing that shows that a tennis court and further pergola were permitted at some point in the past, but never built. Next. This is the state of the affair when we were hired. Mrs. Rayner restored this with the previous architect and then engaged us because she thought that some things were not working. The dining room was too small. There was not enough room for congregation for dining and library. So this is the loggia on the left, as you see, and the center part of the formal center body of the house on the right. You notice the three arches on the right and the left, which are aligning with the three arches on the facing that on the grotto and behind the pool. Next. So what we propose to do is a small addition on the right to balance the loggia on the left, creating an octagonal room, double height space on the right, and linking it with a small link. This is very much classical architecture. What you should do when you have a center body and two wings, you shouldn't just have one wing on one side and a truncated situation on the other side. So this is really our proposal. Next. This is a model we did to show that not only this works outside and is the only real way to link and add to the house, but also from an internal organization, you have a spine that runs east-west in the house. So the only way to continue is to continue the spine and having all the main rooms feed off of the longitudinal spine. Next. This is a Google map rendition of the current situation as it exists. Next. This is a Google map of our proposed addition. You see how it balances the other side and it creates a symmetry with the pool complex that is facing it.
So how close, sir, is the nearest structure to your proposed addition? If you know.
You mean the pool, the
I
swimming pool?
guess that if that's the nearest structure, yes.
Yes. I don't know the exact number. I could only speculate.
It's further away than the existing.
Don't speculate. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, I can get you that information later. This is the drawing showing the non-compliant part of the house, but given the fact that the setback doubled in the 90s, half of the house became non-compliant. There's the red portion. Next. Therefore, if you want to add in a way that it architecturally pleasing and accurate, you have to link it and you are in the non-compliant area. That's why we seek a variance. This shows it. Next. And this, we just build a full-scale burlap and wood prototype to just show the impact on the property. Heavy forestation all around it. And this is the way that we're proposing to link to the current house. That's it with the images.
Are there any questions for Pietro or?
Any board members have any questions?
I have one. So in this last photo, the large tree over on the right, it appears that that's going to have to be removed. And Lenny, you mentioned that you were going to do some landscaping to appease the neighbor on the other side of the house. How is that going to impact this area?
There's no need for any tree removal. We got two different tree experts, and we worked out shallow footings in order not to disturb the existing roots. So no tree is getting removed. And there's enough room in the back of the structure to be able to fit both a fence, an acoustic fence, and a hedge that has been negotiated between the two neighbors. There's plenty of room in the back to do so.
Can I just respond, Jim, with respect to if our September 8th letter outlines our mitigation, there's going to be plantings, there's going to be a sound attenuating fencing along the property line, and the dates of construction, the hours of construction are going to be monitored. And we have an affidavit of the contractor with respect to his projection of a date by which the construction will be completed, the date by which it will be enclosed. We've had extensive conversations with Mrs. Robbins' counsel with respect to the mitigation, and we believe that we've satisfied her concerns, and those should satisfy the concerns of any of the other neighbors who have filed objections with respect to the length of time that it's taken to obtain a C of O from the start here.
Can we go back to the architect first before we get into all this?
Sure.
Joe, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question to the architect. I'm sorry. Can you just go back to the plan and describe the program which is being accommodated in this and the issues as they relate in terms of why it can't be conforming?
We go to the model.
Yeah, the pictures that stick it out into the.
And this is probably the best image to explain, to answer your question.
Thank you.
There's no way to attach some, if you want to add a library dash dining room, which is what we're doing. There's no way to attach it to the front of the house, which is the bottom part of this photo, which would be not even requiring a variance, and we could actually add way more square footage than what we're doing if we add it somewhere else. Because of the double height living room that you see in the middle of the model, and to the side there's a small dining room and a small library, the only way that I can see architecturally that we can attach ourselves to is on the short side where we're attaching ourselves to. Otherwise, you would create a monstrosity that would follow no rhyme or reason. In terms of program, it's there's a small dining room that can accommodate 8 people, and the program was to be able to have a slightly larger library and dining room to accommodate something like 12, 15 people for dinner, which was not possible in the previous scheme.
So is the large octagon, sorry to interrupt, is the large octagon at the end, that's the library, or that's the dining room?
The dining room with books.
Gotcha, okay. And what's that middle, the corridor area?
Well, that's just the link in between. You could have a second table if you so desire. Otherwise, the books. There's a blind wall in the back, which would be a large bookcase. So it's basically a library leading into a library dining room situation.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question. When you said that the footings were going to be shallow, so is there no basement under this portion of the house?
But no way. No. It's just a not even a small space. It's just a slab on grade.
Okay.
So the new addition's just going to be on a slab, or the old house is on a slab?
The new portion is a slab on grade.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? In the dining room, just since I've seen so many iterations, is that a door that opens back towards the Robbins property in the dining room area?
It's a window. It's a window can be fixed. It doesn't need to be a door, no.
So it's a window?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a quick question. Where's the kitchen in the current room?
1 second, I'll get the mouse. Right here.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, that's not the kitchen.
Yeah, it is.
I thought the kitchen was.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'd like Joe Snodgrass to make a very brief presentation and answer any questions with respect to his report, and then we'll go to Ann Walker just to move things along. Joe?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Thank you, Joe.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Joel Snodgrass, One View Place, Huntington, New York. My company is Steward Preservation Services, and we specialize in historic preservation consulting and the conservation of historic buildings and monuments. I'm going to share my screen. I think it'll make things easier. Just have to tell me if you're seeing that. Some of these are similar views to what Pietro showed. Do you see my attachments here? My cursor?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So we were retained by the design team to look at several things. One was the historic assessment of the property, obviously starting in 1895, and then its development over time, and also to explore how the existing dwelling and by extension, the proposed addition, how they appropriately complement the surviving historic context of the property and its landscape components, which, I gather everything was approved in the late 1980s. And so this is now, as Pietro and Lenny has pointed out, things have changed, but by architectural necessity, it's being designed a specific way. You've received my report. I'm not going to go over that in detail, and I'll try to keep my comments brief, but I think it's important to highlight certain points and helpful, which I'll do with images. Part of the process was the interaction and relationship of the dwelling that's from early to the early 20th century landscape and the hardscape components. And I think that's the thing that we really have to focus on here is what was the incentive behind Gorland's design and the importance of the surviving historic components. So, and these are all concrete. We're very interesting at the time. It's where you're using the forms as the texture for the surfaces. It's intentionally known. And as you get up close, you can see that texture and actually how the moss and everything grows and clings to it. But specifically, this is, as you can see in the right-hand picture, this is as Pietro pointed out, it's the pool ensemble, which is the rectangular pool, which now will be used primarily as a fountain. But it's the recessed grotto, flanking ascending staircases, undulating retaining walls with built-in components, and these flanking pavilions, which you saw in his wide frame photo, which also has 3 arched openings each. So note the formality and the symmetrical and balanced emphasis on these components, because this is where it becomes a real statement. This was done by the third owner, Major Spencer Fullerton Weaver, when he extensively remodeled and crafted the property for outdoor entertaining in 1927. This photo is from 1929, but actually part of the caption, it states that this was done 2 years earlier. So these are 1927. The thing to note is how prominent this was in Weaver's expanded landscape. He added a polo field, he added extensive gardens, he put in the sunken recessed lawn, and all balanced though off of his designed folly, if you will, of this romantic setting of the grotto and the components of the pool ensemble. And note the intentionally designed axis. You can see the line straight through the middle arched opening of the grotto to the back of the wall, right through the center of the entrance to the lawn, and actually extends up even further. So the idea was they were intentionally designing this so that the landscape and these components were interacting with each other. And it's important to note that these things all still survive to today. So let me move to, so Weaver, as was already pointed out, Weaver was a prominent New York City-based architect, and so the property was showcased in a number of publications at the time. The site plan is from the American Landscape Architect of 1930. And so, as I noted, this is an intentional backdrop with the access line, and the idea is that it's now playing a similar role today with the current dwelling, which you saw a picture of, and then I'll go back to it again. So the symmetrical placement, again, is the real focus is dead center on the grotto. And so what you get is maximum balance of a completely symmetrical landscape, or actually hardscape component in the landscape, which then is reflected in the house and ties the two together in similar fashion to the way these were tied to the formal lawn. These are 2 more images from the same article in 1927, shown from the northeast side of the property, now looking back at the southwest pavilion, which you see in the far corner. And again, you can see that this was designed to be a romantic placement of this overall component or assembly or ensemble, and works very well in terms of its setting. That's the whole point. Behind it also is the ascending staircase to the rear south side of the property. Again, this was something that was supposed to be undulating and interacting, but really playing off as a very direct, balanced component in a balanced and symmetrical landscape. The 5th image is of the original house as remodeled by Weaver in 1927. And this house was originally built by the first owner, which was Preston B. Spring, in 1895, and designed by architect Joseph Greenlee Thorpe. So it was designed, remodeled, by Weaver, and named Spencecliffe after his 2 sons. And it's worth noting that Weaver intentionally, as you can see here, is continuing the tradition of an eclectic Tudor exterior for his primary dwelling, which was already in that style, but he completely broke that tradition in terms of his landscape elements, which then become much more balanced. They're based on classical precedents and based in balance and symmetry. In the 6th image, it shows Gorland's submission drawings for the house in 1989. And the thing again to note is the axis, which we've already pointed out, is dead center on the center of the 3 arched columns. Again, the openings are mimicking what you're seeing in the pool. They were literally inspired by the pool grotto and side pavilions, and obviously influenced this entire massing. Here is the same axis drawn dead center on the house. So it's confirming that the whole point of this was trying to make these 2 elements speak and interact with each other. And as also is pointed out is the tennis court, pergola, and open air pavilions on either end were actually placed as a balancing component overall in the landscape. So in fact, it was providing a different kind of symmetry and placement, The problem is they were never constructed. So just imagine taking this away and you have a somewhat lopsided effect to what otherwise was supposed to have been something intentionally weighted on either side to speak to each other. So you're essentially left with this now, and you're missing the massing that was intended for the other side. And the last two images are now showing Pietro Cicognani's design, which is really talking about putting a very modestly sized and scaled component onto the house, as he's described, for the purposes of balance. And really, the architectural principles are what really moved this to the location it was, because you can't satisfy those properly if it was done in any other way, which of course they experimented. And now you can see that the effect is minimal. It's not overwhelming the site. It's really a very small, very modest proposal. And this actually satisfies a number of preservation principles: size, scale, massing, proportion, siting, critical, balance, and symmetry. But more than anything else, it's really complementary introduction into the landscape and into the historic context. As Lenny pointed out, the character of the neighborhood is not changed. It actually, if anything, this enhances the structure, enhances it. But you can't see this, you can't see the building at all from the street, but you have to walk into the property, as I guess you've all seen, and actually come around the side to even begin to see where this addition would be. So it's completely invisible from anywhere else. And so by doing this and by adhering to the principles that Pietro used, it's really paying homage to the historic elements of the site and the original historic intent. That same intent was then taken by Gorlin in 1989, and it was also respected because his house is also somewhat restrained and small. But you can see that it's absolutely speaking to the formality of the hardscape elements. And now Pietro has now added in another way that's complementary, reduced, restrained, tasteful, and it's trying to also build upon that. So it really does work quite well. This is actually one of the more successful designs that I've seen in a long time in terms of trying to be respectful for historic site components and allow those to read as a very prominent and celebrated component as opposed to something that goes away. So with that, I'll stop unless there are questions.
Anybody on the board have any questions for Joel?
I do not.
No. Okay.
I do have one question, just historically, and more
Sure.
clear. When was obviously the polo fields, the extensive landscape grounds, when was the property divided up?
The property was divided up, I believe, in the 1950s by the second owner, by the fourth owner, and I think broken up into 6 separate parcels. So as you can see from the existing parcel, it's not far from where the grotto is, although where the house is placed, I think was already noted. That was basically where the lawn was, where it first, so the house is approximately here, and it would actually fit within the footprint of that lawn as drawn in its widest part. So the house would be here. But as you can see, it's been chopped up since the time this property was in its full size.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, otherwise I'll try to stop sharing my screen.
Yep. Carrie, do you have any questions for the architect?
No.
Okay. Or the historian?
All right. I'd like to introduce Ann Walker. Ann, can you pop up on the screen?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Walker. Actually, and I'll ask to pull up the slides that accompany what I'm talking about that are in your office in East Hampton. So I'm Ann Walker. I'm an architectural historian at Peter Penoyer Architects. I have a master's in historic preservation from Columbia, and I'm also an adjunct professor at NYU. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Lenny, Pietro, and Joel regarding 34 Darby Lane. And I just wanted to reiterate in the simplest of terms why this request is so important. Primarily, the aesthetic benefit of this design cannot be achieved without this variance. As described by Alexander Gorlin in his 1997 book, Buildings and Projects, quote, the keynote for the program of this Palladian house was the 200-foot garden wall and the 1927 pavilions from the S. Fullerton Weaver estate. These remnants hearken to East Hampton's golden era and are an important part of that legacy and should remain a highlight and be celebrated on this property. So I just wanted to talk about Schultz. Weaver was a prominent architect and developer, and he was, I think it's under the Schultz and Weaver tab, maybe, right there. Just wanted to show this quickly because it's kind of fun. This just shows the stature of Schultz and Weaver's firm. This is a montage of their built work. You can see the Pierre and the Waldorf and the Sherry Netherland, all iconic buildings on the New York skyline, as well as the breakers in Palm Beach. The classical style of his work at Darby Lane recalls the drama and glory of these hotel designs, albeit on a much smaller scale.
Thank God. I was thinking this might be the follow-on application. So.
We tried to see if the pool was here in the front row, but we didn't see it, but maybe it's there. So, and then I guess let's just go to the Gorlin site plan. So Gorlin, as Joel mentioned, is a well-known architect, scholar, and critic in his own right. This 1989 villa, which was one of his very early works after he formed his practice, he intentionally designed it to hug the northwest property line with the long access extending as close to the perimeter as possible. He did this to maximize the lawn between the house and the pool directly opposite, giving each breathing room and to ensure that all the rooms in the house had an ample and gracious view of the historic area, which he felt evoked, and he wrote in his book, evoked a semblance of ancient Rome. His symmetrical villa evokes the idealized model of a villa, an Italian villa in a landscape. Think of the self-contained, pristine quality of a Palladian villa in the Veneto. I guess, yeah, and then the monumentality of the three arches behind the pool and reflected on the southeast facade, which you see here in Pietro's plans or elevations, reflected on the southeast facade, reinforces that pure and clear symmetrical and axial dialogue between the two aspects of the property. Ciccognani's carefully contemplated design builds upon this dialogue, perfecting what Gorlin originally intended. It completes the symmetry of the entrance loggia and defers to the clear axial relationship between the house and pool, extending Gorlin's main long axis to the northeast as it should be. That's the only way this plan makes sense, really. It maintains the lawn and pool of the as a primary feature. It maintains the lawn as the primary feature on the property, an intentional part of Gorlin's design and a historic reference to the sunken lawn that once lay before the pool historically. Any as of right addition, which Pietro mentioned, could be much, much larger. It would also probably take longer to build, would have to jut out into the lawn to some degree and disrupt this perfect balance. This would greatly upset the carefully sought out inward facing intimate dialogue between the two features and to detract from the monumentality of the arches. It would also diminish the idea of the freestanding Italian villa. It would also crowd, any addition would also crowd the pool area and take away from its importance. And that is the foundation on which this whole scheme from the beginning was built. So in this case, the sought variance of Ciccognani's addition would enable an aesthetic benefit that would respect its context, reflecting both the original historic fabric and the well thought out design of Gorlin in a deferential and entirely appropriate manner. Any other solution would not. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Mr. Ackerman, do you have any other?
No, thank you.
All right. So Billy, let's maybe get some comments from our from Billy Hayjack here. regarding his memo. Billy?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Billy Hayjack on behalf of the Village of East Hampton. I prepared an initial memorandum or report to the board, and it was subsequently revised, dated September 2nd, where I just outlined the proposed project and some of the history or background with it. I'll briefly just summarize that for the board, and you can follow up if you have any questions. I'd be happy to try to answer them. So since I prepared the report, the applicant did submit a revised survey. It's dated August 18th, 2021. This is a 96,500 square foot lot. It's located in the R80 zoning district, so it is compliant with the lot area requirements. It is a bit of an unusual shape. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a flag lot, but it does have sort of an appendage that connects it to Darby Lane. And there's only 81 feet of frontage on Darby Lane, which is a one-way street. The existing residence contains 5,215 square feet of gross floor area. There's a roofed pergola, as was discussed. There's a patio. There were some additions that were constructed to the residence, and the property also contains a detached garage, 2 accessory buildings, which is sort of the grotto built into the hillside, the swimming pool, gazebo, and a bunch of retaining walls. The property was acquired by the current owner in December of 2018. And in 1994, the zoning board granted a variance for an addition on I would say the backside of the residence. And it was about 200 square feet, and that accommodated an elevator shaft to install an elevator from the first to the second floor. That variance permitted the addition to be 21 feet from the side yard, when at the time the required setback was 25 feet. Then more recently, in May of 2020, the zoning board granted side yard setback relief to allow for alterations to the building and also for the construction of an addition, which was at that time 44 feet from the side yard lot line, where now a 50-foot setback is required. So as described by Mr. Ackerman, the addition is 953 square feet in gross floor area as defined by the code. That represents an 18% enlargement over the existing residence. As all the variations of the plan have evolved, I think this is number 3 or 4. They've all held the same setback of 28.5 feet from the side yard lot line. All of those variations required a 21.5 foot variance. And as been discussed, the setback is 50 feet. So this translates to a 43% deviation of the required setback. This version of the plan has been shortened or reduced in size by approximately 5 feet. So it's been pulled back towards the house by roughly 5 feet. And just corrections that I need to make in my report to the board. The existing residence, the original residence on the property was constructed on this particular parcel was constructed in 1955. It was a small 1-story ranch style house. This current residence was constructed in 1988 or pursuant to a 1988 building permit. And at the time, the setback was 25 feet. The setbacks changed in, I believe it was 2002 is when the setback changed to a 50-foot side yard setback. And as was shown on one of the previous slides, roughly, I'd say about half of the house sits within the required setback. So any addition proposed on I guess it would be the northerly side of the residence would technically require a side yard setback variance. That was the extent of my report to the board. If you have any specific questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Board members, anybody?
No, I'm good.
Philip?
I don't have any questions.
Billy, can we, they talk a lot about
Can we hear from the public?
Yeah, we will. Somebody just finished with Billy. Yeah, we'll go to the public next. But Billy, can we hire our own historian regarding this project, just to give us an outline? Or would we, or?
I mean, the property, technically, the property is not in any village designated historic district.
Okay.
It's not designated as a historic property. It's not a timber frame landmark. So, I mean, while some elements of the property might have some historical significance from the original architectural designer. The village doesn't recognize it as technically a historic landmark. But the village is free to, if the zoning board wants to have their own independent assessment, I'm sure you can do that.
Okay. Thanks for your report. So let's move on to the public here. Do we have anybody on the line that'd like to speak?
Yep, let me unmute them.
Okay. Pam, are you gonna?
Hello?
Good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Hello?
You're on the line, sir.
You're on the line, sir.
Yes.
So please,
Can you hear
Pam,
me?
we can. Pam, can you please swear this gentleman in and get his name and?
Sure. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Daniel Hayes. My address is 11 Baiting Hollow Road, East Hampton, New York.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Hayes, please.
Okay. For historical reference, which we've heard a lot, I can give you some background on that since my parents and my family have owned the property adjoining 34 Darby for more than 70 years. When we first bought the adjoining property, this house, which has been undergoing a excessively noisy renovation for more than 2 years, did not exist. In front of that beautiful classical pool was a beautiful glade. There was no residence in front of it. So historically, I see no connection. If you want to talk about the classical integrity of this property, if you would take a look at what they have put in there as a fountain, you would see an absolutely garish installation with something that looks like a drone perched on its head. The back in the early 50s, in addition to being there no dwelling in front of the pool, on the other side of the property there was the 10 acres of lawn, which was used as the polo field. That was chopped up and put in to a subdivision type arrangement. But what I'm concerned about is this seems to be a piecemeal attack on the village zoning code. One variance after another they're going for, and coming forward with all kinds of witnesses to somehow make this into a beautiful historical project when it is not a historical project. And it has been a constant nuisance, creating awful noise unless you live next to it, and my home is 35 feet from the property line. Unless you lived next to it, you couldn't believe the racket that this has created for the neighborhood. This has just taken too long, and perhaps they lost a month due to COVID, but they're still going at it here. Just the last 2 days, they've had a earth mover shoveling around to do drainage, and it's been going beep, beep, beep constantly. The attorney for the applicant has said that they've made changes that satisfy the objections. Well, I beg to differ. This does not satisfy my objections at all. If the applicant wanted a house this size, they should have purchased a lot that was big enough. This is just extreme, and it's just hard to believe. I wanted to say that I know that a number of my neighbors have written to you, and I'm not sure that all these objections have been answered. I would love to know just what the how they expect to do this. It's just I find it just intolerable, the noise that they've created, and I would hope that you would just tell them that this is not acceptable, and I wanted to just say
Mr.
that,
Hayes, Mr. Hayes, just for the record, whether they build it in this spot, they have still the right to build it somewhere else. So, unfortunately, I think the noise will go on whether we approve this application or deny this application, because they're going to be looking for probably a dining room in someplace on the property. So I just want to let you know that.
if there's anything that can be done to alleviate or seriously limit the decibel level, it would be greatly appreciated if you can't deny this variance. I'll just play you. That's a recording of the noise that I had to listen to constantly when this construction was going on.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other neighbors on the line?
Nobody else is on the line.
Okay. Board members?
Can I ask one more question, just since Ann Walker presented the diagram of the building? Is that a walkway above the addition? Is it a balcony, or is it just decorative, that railing?
I'm sorry, on Pietro's addition?
Yeah, where you would put the addition up top. Is that a walkway up top above the entrance leading to the dining room, or is it just roof?
Pietro, can you answer that? Pietro.
Yeah, I mean, it's a roof, but you can walk on it if you wanted to.
Okay.
Is it intended to be a balcony?
Not really, no. It's not intended to be a balcony, but it can, for maintenance and like that, one can open a door and walk on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any comments from the board? I mean, I'd like to get somebody on our team to give us talk about the historical significance of this property. I'd like to get, I don't know who we hire, Bob Hefner or
John, this is Lenny. I asked Bob Hefner to go to the property and to meet. I don't know if he met with Pietro or.
Yeah.
Did he meet with you, Pietro?
Yeah, we met for about half an hour there, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to get something to back up the information that was given to us. So I don't know if any of the board members agree, disagree, or.
He was very positive about that.
I'd prefer to hear that as well.
Okay.
I have a comment that, it is a substantial variance. That's a concern. While I do understand what was presented, I do have concerned about the magnitude of the variance being requested.
That's just, as you know, Mr. O'Connell, one factor, one of five, right?
Yep.
Understood.
To be clear.
Go ahead, Mr. Rose.
So I think it's a very interesting property, obviously with an interesting history and an interesting application. And obviously there is the capacity in terms of the zoning to build the additional program. In studying this, as I have carefully throughout the various iterations, it seems to me there is, with respecting every one of the points that has been made by the by the architect and the historians, that it should be possible to accommodate the program in a way that is respectful of the architecture and the symmetry of the site, that still allows for pulling the library / dining, the new library dining structure in towards the interior to a more conforming location in the same alignment, just pulled back from the to accommodate the setback. So you can still enter the site, the addition, from this exact same location, but in a way that doesn't intrude to the, as Bill O'Connell pointed out, it's a very substantial intrusion into the setback area. And it looks to me like it's possible to achieve the exact same result with a far less significant intrusion into the setback area.
Are you saying make it shorter, Mr. Rose?
No, just pull it away from.
So then the spine wouldn't be straight the way we saw, right?
Well, the spine, it's straight. It's just, if you pull it without the drawing in front, I could.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll go over it.
Yeah. Right. We can talk about it in person, but
I just want to understand. You know.
Right. It keeps the same alignment. It just pulls. It enters slightly to. I'm not sure if it's the south. I think, but it may.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to keep the hearing open and get some historical information from one of our experts. I thank you, Mr. Ackerman. Maybe we'll reach out to Mr. Hefner to speak with him, or we'll hire someone else. I don't know who we can hire. We'll figure that out. If that's so, what do we do, Pam? Just we don't close the hearing. We
continue.
No, you would adjourn the hearing till next month, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. You'd have a motion to adjourn till next month.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait. So next month would be, our next meeting is October 1st.
Next,
So,
not October 1st.
right. So it would be November 12th.
That's next week.
I know. November 12th.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ackerman. Thank you. For your,
Thanks. Thank you, John. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on, and I lost my agenda. So Pam, can you read the next hearing, please?
Sure. Application of 50 East Hollow LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-81042 for an area variance from Chapter 278 zoning to permit accessory improvements on a parcel of land without a principal residential use. A variance is requested from Section 278-1A to permit the continued existence of accessory improvements, including a tennis court and tennis pavilion, on a residential lot that will not be improved with the principal single-family residence and any other relief necessary. The subject property is 78,622 square feet in area and is located at 50 East Hollow Road in Residence District R80. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Is the applicant present?
Target for the applicant. My client owns 46 and 50 East Hollow. 46 is a fully improved property that does not have a tennis court. 50 East Hollow is another fully improved property that does have a tennis court. The goal here in that not needing two homes is to tear one of the homes down. I think it's generally a good thing. The problem is that the village code, like a lot of codes on the east end of Long Island, says that you cannot have a accessory structure on a property that does not have a primary. Because this provision is in a lot of codes I've seen before, best bet is that code section was put in to prevent people from putting workshops on properties in an era where we had different zoning issues. So in other words, I think my best guess is they were trying to prevent people from buying a vacant property, putting a garage on it, and then working out of that garage in a residential neighborhood without their own home being nearby. That's my best guess. The town of East Hampton has dealt with this by, you may have heard of the Seinfeld law, which was when Jerry Seinfeld built literally a baseball diamond on the adjacent property next to him. And he was cited for having an accessory structure on a vacant property without a primary. It kind of made some news. So what the town did was they recognized and changed the code to allow for you to have an accessory structure on a vacant piece of property, so long as you own the property next door. So what I'm asking this board for is a variance to basically do that. And we would be more than happy to condition that variance on us continuing to own an adjacent property. And there is a couple examples in the village of this exact variance having been granted before. Not aware of any detriment whatsoever. Generally, I believe we would all consider less density to be a good thing. So I think it's a good variance to grant, and I can't imagine any objections.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tarbert. Do we have anybody on the line? Any neighbors?
And Mr. Chairman, when you get a chance, if I may, just ask the applicant's counsel a question.
Go ahead, please.
Mr. Tarbert, you mentioned there are similar variances that have been granted by this board. Could you either advise us of them now or submit them?
Yeah, I'm aware of one we have worked on recently. It was recently before the planning board. I'll submit that file to the record.
I believe we just passed, I don't know off the top of my head, but we just passed one of these in the last few months, I believe.
Yeah, I think we did that with,
I think you're right, Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. O'Connell, go ahead, please.
yeah, I think Lenny had one over at the end of Lee and what's the cross street there, where we raised the house also, where they just left the structure big. Can't remember it. It was the old Kilgore, I think.
Lee and
I just wanted it in the record so that if I write a decision, it's convenient for me.
I'm happy. I actually have at least one of them, so I'm happy to submit at least one, and maybe I'll find a couple others.
Okay. So there's nobody on the line?
Nobody on the line.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of quick questions.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
In your application, it says that there's going to be the removal of all the accessory or all the structures, but leaving the what I guess is the tennis pavilion now and the grass tennis court. What's going to happen with the driveways? And I know in the survey it shows that the things are to be removed are in dotted lines, but there are still some AC units. There's some AC units in the back for the tennis pavilion along with the underground tank. Are any of those things inside the setbacks that need to be addressed if this application gets approved?
Setbacks, right? I mean, I'm not exactly sure the question.
Well, you said that everything is going to be removed. There are like landscaping walls. There are, it shows the garage that's going to be removed, the house that's going to be removed, but it doesn't show any reconfiguration of the driveway because there's a big parking area that used to go to the house. There's also like an AC unit in the back corner, which is the west corner. Are those going to be in violation with new setback laws, or do those need to be addressed?
Oh, I understand the question. Maybe Vincent can help me here, but they would not become non-conforming with regard to setbacks by the removal of the home. Although I can tell you, I think part of your question was about the driveway and other sort of structures. While I can't say exactly what the plan is, this is intended to be treated as one property. They'll continue to be single and separate for zoning purposes, kept in separate names so they don't merge. But it essentially become a 3-acre property, which will be landscaped and used as by one family.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question, and I'm not sure if this combination, Vinny, Bill, John. So I have no problem with the purpose sought here and it all seems reasonable, but just, I guess, historically, not here, but in general, don't want to create a situation that turns in retrospect, well, because they're not becoming one 3-acre property, it remains a separate property. So to the extent that things are allowed, and then if there were to be subsequent development of a home on the property, in addition to what's there, how that relates to an as-of-right condition is confusing. So whatever the appropriate constraints and the determination that don't create a situation that can lead something down the road that we don't anticipate.
Yeah, and you hit right on it, Mr. Rose. That is that you can control it by covenant, which is, I think, what Mr. Tarbert even suggested earlier in his presentation that his client would be willing to do. But that's the way that you would prevent, what was not intended from happening.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't think we have an issue with this. So, Vinny, thank you, and everybody. So let's move on to, I make a motion to close the hearing.
So move. There's second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tarbert. Pam, can we move on to the next hearing?
Sure. Application of Obra LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-484.4 for a variance from Chapter 278 zoning to relocate and make alterations to an existing residence. A 4-foot variance is requested from Section 278-384A to make alterations and to relocate a single-family residence 30 feet from the side yard lot line where the required setback is 34 feet and any other relief necessary. The subject property is 48,978 square feet in area and is located at 9 Hither Lane, Residence District R80. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Is the applicant present?
Hi, I'm Tarbert again for the applicant. So what's going on here is my client recently bought this property. What he'd like to do is to lift it up and put a new foundation under it and make it aligned straight with Hither Lane. Right now it's askew, it's on a little bit of an angle. So when he came to me, I thought it was a decent application so long as we didn't get any closer to anybody else's property lines. So in straightening it out, the eastern property line stays exactly the same as in a conforming location at 34 feet. On the western property line, we're actually making it a little better. So we're going from what's currently 20, and it's just a matter of when you shift the house to align it straight with the street, it just naturally makes it a little better on that property line. So it goes from 26 to 30 feet. The neighbor on that side is Susan Karchis. I've spoken to her. Actually, I represent her. Her concern was that it's not getting any closer to her house. Once I explained that we're actually getting a little further away, she had no objections to the application. So again, it's a pretty straightforward and easy application. It's just a matter of lifting the existing house up and aligning it with Hither Lane, and we're making zoning a little better. Although it still requires a variance because it's a change to a pre-existing non-conforming situation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tarbert. Is there anyone on the line, Pam, that would anybody like to be heard?
There are no
Okay.
callers on the line.
Thank you. Board members, would you like to, anybody have
Can I
any?
just ask a question? Except you represent Ms. Karchis, or Ms. Karchis. Is there a way to just reflect that comfort with the application in the record, or are you representing that for the record? Just so we.
Yeah, and as soon as I said it, I thank you for the question because I don't want to make it seem like I'm her only lawyer. Like I represented her before the board previously. So that was my representation.
Mr. Tarbert represented Mrs. Karchis on Egypt Close before.
Yeah, she's a former client, right, John?
Former client is a better way to phrase it. Thank you. As soon as I said it, I was thinking that. So my conversation with her was actually just her calling as a concerned neighbor. And she called me and I said, oh, actually, I represent the current applicant. And she said, well, what's going on there? And I explained it to her. And she, again, her comment was simply that as long as it was getting further from her house, she had no issue with it. I can make that representation.
And also there's no writing in the record, nor has she called in today. Yeah. So I think that speaks to your.
Okay, any other board members have any questions?
I have no problem with this.
Me neither.
Problem.
Make a motion
No
to
issue.
close the
I'll
hearing.
make
Well,
close the hearing.
motion to close.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Bennett, can we finish on the Bayberry, last one, Bayberry Close Corporation?
Sure. Application of Bayberry Close Corp., Cottage 9, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301, 1313 20.3 for variances from Chapter 278 zoning to construct a pergola. Variances are requested from sections 278 1B 2C and 278 7C 2D2 to make alterations to a pre-existing non-conforming use with the construction of a pergola over an existing patio and any other relief necessary. The subject property has 108,410 square feet in area and is located at 92 Ocean Avenue in Residence District R160. This project is classified as a type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Good morning, Nancy. Are you the applicant?
Yes, Nancy Marshall. Good afternoon, everyone, from Flooding and Darrell's office. As Pam just said, this is a simple application for a pergola. It's going to be over existing slate patio. There'll be no increase in coverage. We believe this meets the standards for the variances. There'll be no detriment to any of the neighboring properties or the character of the neighborhood. This has been approved by the co-op board, so they are in agreement with it. There actually are no alternatives whatsoever rather than these variances we need. It's a pre-existing use that's going to be increased. The location's pre-existing. Pretty much anything on this property would require a variance, as you know. The variance is not substantial. It's a simple 18 by 12 foot pergola. And again, it's just needed for shade because it's in a beachy area where there's really no shade provided. And it's over an existing slate patio, so there'll be no increase in coverage. No detriment to the environment. It's no increase in coverage. It's modest. Should be no impact whatsoever. And finally, it's not a self-created difficulty. Again, anyone who purchases in this area needs to come before you for pretty much everything, since it is so pre-existing non-conforming. Any questions?
I have no questions. Any board members, any questions? Jimmy, I know you had some calculations.
Yeah, I have no problem with the application. This is just more clarification. First of all, maybe this is for Billy. Billy, this application, this location of this cottage is in an AE elevation 10 flood zone, and the proposed patio is the elevation it shows is 8'6" or 8.6 feet. I don't know what that entails or if we have to do anything regarding that. The second question I have is for the applicant, and it's more of a clarification. The survey actually shows a 14 by 20 patio and pergola. The application itself says 10 by 10 pergola, but the drawings show a 12'2" by 18'2" pergola. So I think we just need clarification.
Okay.
And again, I don't have any problem with this application. I just want clarification.
Yeah, the drawings would control that. It was probably, it must have been an error on the other one. It would be the drawings that would have the proper measurements.
Okay, thank you.
Pam, was this noticed correctly?
It was noticed for whatever the file said. It doesn't give a specific size, so.
Okay.
The notice is for the pergola. I didn't reference a size.
Okay.
Because of the discrepancy.
So then do we just attach the drawing to the determination?
We referenced the drawing specifically in the determination. Yeah.
All right, then I have no problem with it.
Mr. Rose?
Just quick point that I have no problem with the application. I have relatives who have own adjacent property, so I just, for the purpose of disclosure, just wanted to call attention to that fact.
Thank you, Mr. Rose.
And just to answer Mr. McMullen's question, the pergola does not have to meet FEMA elevation requirements. There are some strapping requirements, I believe, but in terms of elevation, you would not have to elevate it to meet the first floor elevation requirements.
Great. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you. So I have a motion to close this.
I'll make a
application.
motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If there's no more business today, I'd like to close the meeting. I have a motion. Second?
Second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and we'll see you all next Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
McGurk, I'm going to call you in a couple of minutes if